hunted him down.
You know, Colonel, we went to a lot of trouble to find you.
They murdered his friends. And they took the only thing he would kill for.
If you want your kid back, then you gotta cooperate. Right?
Wrong.
Now, somewhere, somehow, someone's gonna pay.
Do you think that he is going to give us any problems?
You'll do exactly as he's told.
Hasta luego, fellas.
You're a funny guy, Sully. That's why I'm going to kill you last.
Are you gonna tell me what's going on or what?
No. Don't disturb my friend. He's dead tired. What are you doing?
Helping you get her back.
Remember, Sally, when I promised to kill you last?
That's what made you did.
I lied.
If it's a mission no man can survive, he's the man for the job. Arnold Schwarzenegger, Commando.
Let's party.
You're a funny guy, Sully. I like you. That's why I'm going to kill you last. What's up, guys? It's me, Eddie, once again with another episode of Eddie G's Comic Culture, sponsored by Black Apparel. Giving a special shout out to those guys, thanking them once again for the support that they've shown on this show. All the work that they've done, the contributions that they've been putting into has been excellent. And giving another special shout out to two friends of mine on Instagram, the Strictly Comedy Vault, who's got some good content on his page. He's an up and coming writer, make sure you go check him out, as well as Blu-ray Dan, who also has a YouTube channel as well, who has some great content involving Blu-ray releases, great reviews on films. He's very insightful. Make sure you give him a check out as well. On this episode, I wanted to discuss in particularly movies that make you your go-to movie to make you whenever you're down. And I got to tell you, in one of the recent films well, that's not recent. I'm going to be honest. As I've grown older, I've rekindled my love for 80s action films as well as horror, but more so the two 80s action icons, Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone. And Commando has always been a favorite of mine and my brother's as well. It stars Arnold and a very young, I'd probably say preteen, Alyssa Milano, playing his daughter in the movie. He's a retired Marine Special Forces agent. I'm not too sure exactly what it is. And apparently it starts off with him, and it starts off with his old unit, his military unit, getting knocked off one by one. By notorious villain Dan Hedaya, who's he had a lot of work in the 80s and 90s as well. He plays the villain of and a former dictator of a fake Central or South American country, Valverde. It doesn't exist. It's not a real country, but it's very funny. It's very great. It's an awesome movie, and I'll tell you why. It's the beginning stages of Arnold in his acting career still. Although he did have the Conan movies as well, and he did have Terminator the year before. I believe Terminator, the original, the first Terminator film was released in 1984. Commando was released in 1985. But one of the great things about this movie is the fact that the humor in it as well is just so unbelievable. Arnold is a horrible actor, and it's cheesy as hell to watch it, but it's so much fun because his one-liners are just on point. They're tactful throughout the entire movie. Once the movie starts to the very end, and it opens up with his old team getting killed by his former, by his former friends, and The money shot is when he starts, when they finally introduce him in the movie, and you see him walking through the forest holding a tree and a chainsaw. So it just gives you an idea as to where the movie's actually going. But it is so great because, man, let me tell you, this movie, it did. If you're, whenever I'm feeling down or depressed or sad or anything of that nature, if I'm not in a good mood, I always watch that because it can literally turn it around just like that. And it involves Alyssa Milano's character getting kidnapped, and of course Arnold has to save her. And along the way, he's chasing. Along the way, he's forced to do a job to retrieve his daughter back. He's forced to do an assassination job in the movie that he doesn't want to do, but he has to because his daughter's kidnapped. And in order to get her back, he has to complete the mission. However, he knows that she's gonna die anyway if he does do what he's told. So instead of actually completing the job, he goes back on a one-man mission to take out an army of of soldiers by himself. And along the way, he befriends Ray Dawn Chong, who her character is funny as all hell in the movie. Also, I mean, let me tell you, she just like it's such typical cheesy '80s action. You gotta love it. It's so bad. It's one of those. It's so bad. It's good kind of movie. And trust me, you'll not be bored without it. You will not be bored at all. Even with all the discrepancies throughout the movie, you will still find yourself glued to the screen because it's so hilarious. And Arnold's one-liners, like I said, are so tactful. It's unbelievable. All the way from the moment it's time for him to get down to business, and he's killing. He's catching bodies left and right, killing everyone in sight. ¿Cómo están? you gotta understand. Like this is exactly like this was the male testosterone movie of the '80s, and it's up there to me. Like a lot of people have personal favorites, the Terminator, and Terminator 2, of course. Mine's will always be Commando, and a close second is Red Heat, because Arnold. Let me tell you, Arnold. If there's anything that Arnold knows how to do outside of action movies, it's comedy, and he knows how to blend it too well. I'll tell you that. I'll give that to him. As poor as his acting may be, the man knows how to mesh these two materials just perfectly so, and it worked. It's worked so well that the man has a career for this long. He actually became a governor of California, for crying out loud. But I'll digress. But this was a movie that's released in the mid '80s, and around that time, it was just a plethora of horror and action films going on. Slasher films have just made the comeback, of course. I'm also going to do an episode based on those this week, so keep an eye open for that. But not to sidetrack, of course. And it was just a very male testosterone driven era. And you got movies like Rambo, Cobra, Red Heat, and Terminator, of course, and The Running Man. The Running Man, which had some science. He had an affinity for science fiction, oddly enough. But he was always, like, Arnold was always that character to have that he always had that kind of that comedic element to his films. And Stallone was much more serious, of course, but he was actually I think if anything, Stallone is they're both talented in their own ways. I think Stallone is a little more talented considering what he's done with the Rocky franchise, and actually winning an Academy for that, and winning an Academy for playing that character again for Creed also cemented his status to me as I think it cemented his status as an official actor for me. And it's just one of those features that you can definitely have a great time in, no matter what. It's Red Heat, like I said, is another great film with him and Jim Belushi. Jim Belushi was also a good comedian, was also a good comedic actor, excuse me, and it's just one of those features that you can definitely go through in like 2 bags of popcorn, man. And the movie's not even that long; it's about an hour and 30 minutes. So, but for it to have that sort of an effect on it, man, it's just unbelievable. The villains, of course, are overacted. They're overacted and exaggerated tremendously. Dan Hedaya with his phony, with his Latino accent is just It's hilarious, and at the same time, you just can't believe how you just can't believe a lot of the stuff that's going on. And then Ray Don Chong, of course, she has her moments. She can be a bit annoying throughout certain parts of the movie, but that's just literally overshadowed by Arnold. And even then, she does have her own sense of humor, so it did mesh well. It was a perfect marriage, so to speak, on screen. Um, but it was definitely one of those movies that you could, and it was funny because I remember watching the commercials as they started, replaying these movies on network television, which kind of sucked because it cuts out all the good parts, all the good parts, and you can't really, they couldn't really exercise all of that, the violence back then, because it's Arnold, man. But how can you cut out these important action sequences with Arnold? He's actually like taking out an army of people and not getting hit himself maybe once or twice. And at some point at the final fight and the final firefight on the island, like he's just so overblown, it's out of proportion. Like he's literally shooting anything and everything, and he's hitting everyone, like no matter what. The man could have shot at a palm tree, and he would have taken out at least, like, there would have been like three, like magically three goons falling right off of the branches or something. It made no sense, but it was perfect because it was just mindless action, and it's comedy, and it's perfect. It's a feel good movie. It's not there to make you think. It's not there to give you it's not a pensive film, so it's not there to force you to really think about what is it that you just saw, rather than just review the film in its entirety as what it is. It's just a movie. So, with that being said, I highly recommend it. If you ever have a chance to check, if you ever have a chance to see it, definitely check it out. And I can't help it, man. At some point, I'm remembering a lot of the scenes right about now, and even Sully, who played Luther in The Warriors, another classic movie. Um, he's one of the first to die, if anything, in that film, and his acting is it's spot on with what's needed. He did what was needed of him on set, honestly, and but it's actually just a feel good riot of a movie, and I would definitely, I see that movie, and then there's times where I'm just thinking, like, even though I'm having some trouble just remembering a lot of the scenes right about now because of everything that I love about it. But as soon as I actually start playing it, like I could actually recite I could actually recite some scenes verbatim like nothing. But it's so cool, it's so awesome, and it's so hilarious. The humor is just perfectly timed in the movie, and Arnold at his peak, man. It was just him and Sylvester Stallone. They owned the world. They owned the world in the '80s. Let's be honest here. They were at their peak. They were at their prime. They were untouchable as far as movie stars were concerned. They were movie stars, And then later came on Bruce Willis with the Die Hard films and all that stuff. But these guys were the top dogs in their industry as far as that was, as far as their prime. And man, I gotta tell you, it's one of those things that you could definitely see. One of the films, like, I love watching Red Heat. I'm gonna do another special on that one. I intend to do so very soon as well. And it's just one of those excellent features. If you ever have a chance, rent it, buy it, whatever. Make sure you just make sure you check it out. You will not be disappointed. And all of the characters are great, and in particularly so in Commando, there's one main villain that supposedly harbors some ill will towards Arnold's character because of how he released him from his unit. And the final fight scene between him and Arnold is so unreal. It's so unbelievable. It makes no sense. You could actually swear that at some point during that final fight, it seems like they're having like a crazy face competition to see who can make the most awkward, who can make the crazy eyes look the most at each other. It's weird, but out of this world, and it's and it's so untimely hilarious because I don't think they were really making that scene to be laughed at, but it just came out to be a little too much. But Yes, the ultimate fight between him and the villain Bennett. That's Bennett. He's another character, and he goes just completely nuts at the very end as Arnold tries to play into his psyche, and he just loses his mind, and it ends up with him getting, like, how do you throw a steam pipe through someone? And then this final quip to the man is, let off some steam, Bennett. I mean, seriously. And there's so many discrepancies in that movie. You'll definitely catch them, but it's 80s mindless action films. You can't really call it. You can't look at it as, you got to look at it for what it is, and not for what it's, not as a film that you would really want to think about like that as a pensive feature or anything. It's not an art house film at all by any means whatsoever. So don't go into it thinking about that. Just when you watch the movie, make sure you have yourself a good time, because that's exactly what the movie is, a good time. And it's definitely a benchmark in his career. I think it's one of his. I think the movie should definitely be celebrated for what it's worth. If anything, I think they should re-release it in theaters, or other theaters in themselves. Because I know there's some theaters out right now that actually do some re-releases on on old films, and I think that movie always deserves. I will always celebrate Commando no matter what. It's just up there for me. It's been a while since I've seen the other movies, as far as Stallone. It's always been, as of recent in particularly, so it's been, a lot of his careers revolved around Rocky as of recent, and then the Expendables, which paired him and Schwarzenegger together finally, and I can't believe it took almost 30 years for them to get that done, but it happened. But these guys were definitely the king of the 80s, and in movie, in pop culture in particular, and I don't even remember when Stallone was dating Brigitte Nielsen during Rocky 4, and they dated in real life. So man, that's they were simpler times, to say the least, so to speak. But definitely, guys, if you ever have an opportunity and you want to hang out, you want to just kick back, relax, have a few good laughs, and see some mindless action, make sure you check out Commando. It's definitely up there. It's one of my top picks as far as movies are concerned. All right. So here's my special. That was my special tribute episode to Commando. And definitely I'll be definitely making some more episodes dedicated to the other releases of Arnold Schwarzenegger as well, because the man has a pretty lengthy career, and Red Heat is one of them for me that I am going to do a special on, and as well as Twins. But other than that, man, I guess that's going to be it for this episode. Thank you guys for watching once again. If you have any questions or comments or suggestions, you already know, hit the comment section. If you want to subscribe. And we'll see you around. Have a good one. Take care of yourself. And take it easy.